FarAway Wanderers. Chapter 13. Exposed. Zhou Zishu abruptly stopped walking and sized up the 4 cave entrances with a frown. "There's water and wind in here, the chances for someone to poison us are low," he said. He wouldn't call himself an expert in medicine-related matters, but the current emperor during his years as crown prince used to be acquainted with a young shaman from South Xinjiang who was held hostage at the capital. The shaman was following orders from the Shaman Valley to use the pugilist scene in Zhongyuan as test subject for their medicine, and most of the South Xinjiang originated remedies and poisons which were unheard of at that time were brought here by him. Notes: Xinjiang is one of China's administrative subdivision, located in the northwest of the country. Zhongyuan, the central plains of China. Zhou Zishu might not possess an intensive knowledge, but he had seen enough to know that there had yet to exist a poison that could cause hallucination for this long. Wen Kexing nodded. "So someone has used divination to find ways to trap us here. Do you know anything about it?" Zhou Zishu replied calmly, "The stuff's about 3 directions, 8 trigrams, and 6 jias." "You must have studied a lot of things, even this," Wen Kexing said in surprise. Zhou Zishu was nonplussed. "Of course I don't. That's all I know about it." He decided to sit down as walking further was an impossible feat. While leaning back onto the wall, he carelessly let the wound graze the surface. He shivered and slightly grimaced, unable to process the fact that a mere wild beast could agonize him to this state, but such was the life of being seen as a nuisance everywhere he went. Wen Kexing thought about how he at least knew what 3 directions and 8 trigrams actually was and felt a sense of intellectual superiority, but after he remembered that Zhou Zishu sold himself for 2 silvers, the superiority fell flat. So he sat down beside the injured man, tilting his head to look at the wound, somewhat delighted at the other's misfortune. "Serves you right for treating a monster like a little girl." Zhou Zishu closed his eyes to recuperate, paying no attention to him. Wen Kexing silently stood up, walked away and returned after a while. Zhou Zishu felt a spike of coldness on his shoulder, and he opened his eyes to Wen Kexing using a soaked piece of cloth to wash the wound. On instinct, Zhou Zishu avoided the touch, but Wen Kexing held back his shoulder. "Don't move." Zhou Zishu asked with a pained face, "Where did you get the water from?" "The river." Wen Kexing replied. After some thinking, he added, "It's running water, really clean." Zhou Zishu felt his hair stand on end. He knew it was running water, so drinking from it was no problem, much less using it to treat injuries, but he couldn't stop thinking about those underwater creatures roaming around under there. Sharp-eyed Wen Kexing happily teased the other after noticing the goosebumps. "Can you really be disgusted when you look like a ragged beggar yourself? Come on, stop acting like a maiden." Zhou Zishu knew the other had a point. Nevertheless, he glanced at the other's handkerchief witheringly. The fragrance from it, a gentle and elegant smell of beauty products, attacked his nostrils, and at the corner was a small but exquisitely embroidered orchid. The size was a bit too big and it looked too plain for a maiden to use, but if this was a man's, what kind of person would carry this on them? He couldn't help but give Wen Kexing a weird look and teased the man back since no one was around. "My good friend, why are you carrying a maiden's belongings? Is there a story behind this?" Wen Kexing, who was carefully removing the blood-stained fabric from the open wound, immediately tore the clothes with more force after hearing that, face blank. Zhou Zishu let out an ow, grimacing. Only then did Wen Kexing answered in good spirits, "This is a personal gift from the famous courtesan and gentleman Su Yu from Yangzhou City. You shouldn't have asked if you don't want to make an ignorant fool of yourself." Then he continued to tear Su Yu's gift into pieces and used them to cover Zhou Zishu's wound. Zhou Zishu had no idea people from Jiangnan were that open-minded. He asked without thinking, because even back when the capital was 30 miles from the Wangyu River and was ruled by that degenerate emperor, the concept of a male courtesan was not heard of anywhere. Wen Kexing looked at him with pity. "Were you born in Utopia? Is everyone from Tianchuang a country bumpkin? Or was my guess wrong?" Zhou Zishu scoffed, "Never have I said that I..." Before he could finish, Wen Kexing moved at lightning speed to dig at a major acupuncture point on his chest. If the target was at another place on his body and was covered by clothes, Zhou Zishu would not feel anything, but he was exhausted and the unruly nails were acting up, so that very light attack was the last straw. He cried out, body bent over in pain, "You!" Wen Kexing rubbed his chin, his tone knowing, "Your internal injuries are very serious, and seeing how capable you are, there's no way Tian Chuang will let you go easily. But from what I heard, the deadly reputation of the nails of 7 apertures for 3 autumns is no jokes, yet I see that you can still behave normally and run around in great spirits. Even if you act a little silly, that silliness definitely isn't caused by the nails. Did I really guess wrong after all?" Zhou Zishu gritted out while sweating buckets, "Wen Kexing, screw your entire ancestors." Seeing that the man stopped putting on an act with all of his blah 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 brother Wen whatever nonsense, Wen Kexing felt accomplished even though he just got cursed it. He replied nonchalantly, "My ancestors are just dust now, I don't even know their names, so that might be an impossible feat. Though, if you can remove your disguise, and under that is a stunning face, I'm perfectly willing to be a replacement for my forebears." Zhou Zishu was still gritting his teeth tightly, body wound up like a shrimp and trying his best to keep the nails under control. At the other's ramblings, he interrupted in irritation, "Would you shut the fuck up?" Wen Kexing shut up immediately, crossing his arms and watching by the side with not a single ounce of guilt. After an undecipherable amount of time, Zhou Zishu opened his bloodshot eyes. Even though outsiders could not see what his real expression was, it was clearly not pleasant. It's morning now. The nails had calmed down, which signified dawn. They had been trapped in this strange cave for an entire night. Wen Kexing was not anxious either. He nodded at that. "Seems like whoever lured you here possibly on purpose really wants you dead." "Whoever lured you?" Zhou Zishu replied. "It's obviously you, I'm a good person." Wen Kexing wouldn't admit defeat. Zhou Zishu ignored him, grasping at the wall to stand up. He leaned on it and started calculating the way to escape. Wen Kexing asked by his side, "Aren't you afraid, Zhou Su?" "I am," Zhou Zishu replied. Wen Kexing stared at him, slightly surprised. Zhou Zishu continued very seriously, "I haven't gathered enough merits yet. If I enter hell now, who knows what I'll reincarnate into." Wen Kexing firmly said after some thought, "You definitely weren't a good person before, then." He didn't wait for Zhou Zishu's reply, "If that's the case, isn't it too late to start merit gathering now?" Zhou Zishu straightened his back and walked toward a direction. "Why? Haven't you heard of the saying, the second you drop the knife is when you become Buddha?" Wen Kexing chased after him, "Where are you going?" "I'm going to eat dog meat," Zhou Zishu said, "that person only traps us here." "Traps you?" Wen Kexing corrected. Zhou Zishu glanced at him with contempt, continuing, "That beast's head is quite hefty, feasting on that is enough for us to last a few days. Without it there are still the underwater creatures, so we definitely won't starve. Doesn't matter who that person dressed in black is, they'll show themselves eventually." Wen Kexing said in horror, "You were afraid of the dirty river water just yesterday, and now you want to eat those things that live in it. And are you going to starve yourself to death and let those things eat you instead?" Zhou Zishu replied and concluded, "How saintly of you, brother Wen." The light couldn't reach the cave, but fortunately Zhou Zishu brought with him some lighters since he planned on escaping in the night. There was also a luminous pearl that he stole from the riches. The pearl was small but it was enough for them to move around. The faint light cast over half of his face, and Wen Kexing saw not the unpleasant features, but very bright eyes that were directed at him, carrying an indescribable hint of playfulness. That look was somewhat familiar. Wen Kexing thought long and hard about it, but he couldn't remember which beauty those eyes belonged to, so he stayed silent. In the moment when both of them said nothing, Zhou Zishu's ears caught the sound of a breath that was neither his nor Wen Kexing's. He smiled as expected. Someone was not feeling very patient right now. He then stood by the river and bent down to wash his hands, killing another monster that was sneakily attacking in the process. He lifted it up and threw it on the ground. The creature's neck broke and it drew its last breath without even making a sound. Zhou Zishu scooped up the water and drank leisurely. Wen Kexing, a carefree hoodlum himself, stared at his companion thoughtfully before using the tip of his toe to kick the corpse away and drank the river water like the other. At that moment, a blade of wind came at them from behind. Wen Kexing dodged it by stepping aside, seemingly predicted it as he looked calm. A blade grazed his robes and fell into the water with a splash. Zhou Zishu laughed, his arms crossed as he stood to one side to enjoy the fun. See, brother Wen, didn't I say that they're after you? And you're definitely not the good type either, seeing that they devote this much effort to deal with you. There were blades coming at him from every direction of the cave. Those blades completely went past Zhou Zishu to charge at Wen Kexing, creating a maze of weapons, but Wen Kexing didn't struggle at all, his Qinggong so much more skillful than Zhou Zishu had estimated. Internally, though, he was cursing this Zhou person was such a vengeful and petty one. Not only was he not good, he was utterly contemptible. Wen Kexing lifted his arm to bat away another blade, which brushed Zhou Zishu's pants and planted itself on the ground. Is leaving one to sink or swim your way of gathering merits, my beautiful Zhou? End chapter. FarAway Wanderers. Chapter 14. Escape. Zhou Zishu looked him over before replying unhurriedly, I don't see how you're near death. He hadn't finished when Wen Kexing, as if responding, cried out in pain with his back bent. One of the blades pierced through his body to the hilt, and his face went pale as he could only utter, You. Zhou Zishu was initially shocked, but soon enough he rushed toward the opposite direction. In the corner was a fleeting shadow which caught Zhou Zishu's eyes thanks to the incredibly narrow path. The shadow was unable to dodge his attack in time, and they coughed up blood which stained their whole mask. They staggered back a few steps, but still had it in them to get back on their feet and run. There was an oath from Zhou Zishu as he realized the pine cone last time didn't stop them, not because he didn't put enough strength into it, but rather because this one was good at being a punching bag. All of a sudden, a ghostly figure appeared from nowhere to grab at the person's neck, propping them against the wall. The man in black said in horror, You. Wen Kexing tilted his head and smiled, his other arm raised. The blade, which was held under his armpit, fell to the ground. His clothes didn't suffer a single scratch. Zhou Zishu spoke in a lethargic manner, Did you really believe his hoax? This is the first time I've seen a killer this dumb. At that, Wen Kexing looked at him thoughtfully. It's not that he's awful, your eyes are just way too sharp, my friend. If you aren't injured, he might. He cut himself off right there and shook his head, strengthening his grip on the black-clothed man's neck. There was a gurgling sound from his throat while his eyes shone with unspeakable fear. Wen Kexing felt his upper body with his other hand and hummed, Gold-threaded armor. This is some good stuff, a shame that it's wasted on you. The man forced out broken words with great difficulty, Moss. S.M. Wen Kexing's lips curled, and with a crack, the man convulsed and went still. Zhou Zishu watched his companion killing off this person without any interrogating, his eyes darkened a little. He took one step back and leaned onto the wall, arms crossed while thinking about something. Wen Kexing removed the man's mask to completely reveal his identity. He looked around 40 with a small physique and high, cruel cheekbones. On his right cheek was a big red birthmark. His eyes were small, his nose was big, and he had buck teeth. Wen Kexing commented after examining, Seeing how he looks, he deserves to die after all. Then he raised his head to smile at Zhou Zishu, Do you agree, brother Zhou? Zhou Zishu replied, You're so full of nonsense. Wen Kexing held up his arms in a gesture of appreciation, I'm very incredibly honored that you thought of me so. Zhou Zishu laughed mockingly and went past him to look at the body. There were many burning questions inside him, such as, how did the famous golden armor, which disappeared from Jianghu many years ago, end up in this person's hand? Was this one the true Xuefeng, the hanged ghost? How were those underwater creatures made? Were they human? He undressed the corpse in a blink of an eye and found a daunting tattoo of a ghost face on his back. Zhou Zishu paused. He could be no one else but one of the ghosts. The hanged? Hanged ghost Xuefeng apparently had buck teeth? Ugh! This isn't right, and Zhou Zishu immediately abandoned this very Wen Kexing-like train of thought. Were those the actual ghosts that chased after him and Zhang Chengling along the way? Impossible, the ghosts of King Zurich couldn't possibly make a name for themselves if that was all they could do. Why did the hanged ghost want to kill Yu Tianjia? And was the person who went the other way the delighted morning ghost? The act of killing renowned figures on the outskirt of the Zhao's holdings was a direct confirmation that they were the ones responsible for the Zhang family massacre. What good would it bring the Ghost Valley? And he looked up at an amiable Wen Kexing, questioning him suddenly. Didn't Brother Wen proclaim that you'd never murdered anyone ever since you left home? Why went against that just now? Wen Kexing glared. He wanted to end me first. If I hadn't been smart and clever enough, I would have died under those blades. Zhou Zishu smiled. Were you also adamant that this disaster would never befall you, Mr. Good-hearted Wen? Wen Kexing replied with sense. Look at this one and the ghost face on his back, then look at the young man we found. He lost his head before he could even get hitched. Don't you see? It proves the fact that this man was of the extremely vile sort. Did he need a reason to take the life of a good-hearted one? Zhou Zishu looked at him, not saying anything. Wen Kexing shook his head, voice full of conviction. How sad for an adult like you to be completely ignorant of such principles. I can't even imagine how you grew up. Zhou Zishu was silent for a good while. Then he spat out, grateful for the education. Wen Kexing was quick to reply, it's nothing at all, don't be so formal. Zhou Zishu looked down, back to searching the body. While he was removing the armor, a small pouch fell out from the area near the chest. He carefully took it off, and found a sparkling piece of lapis lazuli inside. It was as big as the palm of his hand and meticulously crafted, seemingly engraved with patterns. He held up a broken piece to examine it under the light. Lapis. There was an awe from Wen Kexing as he took a closer look and received it from the other with both hands, as if he was afraid of breaking it. No wonder he wore the golden armor. I would have done the same if this was in my possession. Zhou Zishu was curious at the other man's serious attitude. What is it? He couldn't help but ask. Wen Kexing replied, this looks like one of the 5 pieces that make up the legendary lapis armor. I thought them to be rumors, but seems like they're real after all. It's said that once you gather all 5 pieces, you will rule over the entire pugilist scene in Zhongyuan no matter who you are. Some say those pieces have the guide to the greatest martial art style hidden within them, some say they hide a map instead, and when you follow the directions it will lead you to the object of your dreams and desires. He put it back in Zhou Zishu's palm somewhat reluctantly, curling the other's fingers around it. It's the good stuff, he said softly. Zhou Zishu nodded in understanding, then immediately batting Wen Kexing's hand away. He put the piece of lapis back into the pouch and carelessly threw it aside to continue searching the hanged ghost's body. After turning the corpse over and finding nothing else, he stood up with a frown. Well, this is troublesome. How do we get out now? He stared down upon the still-sitting Wen Kexing, continuing in annoyance, I'm asking you, Mr. Good Person Wen. You killed this man way too quickly, do you want us to dig our way out like mice? Wen Kexing pointed to the lapis, don't you want that? Zhou Zishu replied with a solemn face, if the completed piece is made of real lapis then it does worth a fortune, but there is only one part of it here so it's entirely useless. Not even the pawn shop would take this thing. At that, Wen Kexing laughed softly and stood up. He followed Zhou Zishu while asking, seeing how cautious Brother Zhou is, why won't you believe in the rumors? Don't you have any wishes or desires? Zhou Zishu didn't bother to look back. There is no such thing as a free lunch, and even you don't want it yourself, so why must I? Don't you have desires too, charitable brother Wen? Wen Kexing turned his head away at that, carefully putting the pouch in his chest pocket. What if I want it? He asked. Zhou Zisha glanced at him, then replied, ah. And nothing else. They walked back and forth in the cave, revisiting both the spot from where they jumped down and the entrance with blades sticking out. Zhou Zisha felt the wall surrounding them with his hands. This gate closed when we tried to get out, so at that time the hanged ghost was definitely near. The controlling mechanism might be around this spot too. But they were both completely clueless about divination, so the search was fruitless. The 7 nails started to stir slightly, informing Zhou Zisha that it was nearing midnight again. Another full day had passed with them trapped under here, and considering that he was in a worse condition than before, eating that dog-like beast might be inevitable. While they were thinking hard, all of a sudden, a faint voice could be heard from somewhere far away from the cave entrance. Hurry up, I found this place, let me call out to them, Master. Master! Can you listen to me? Master, are you still breathing? If you are, I'm gonna dig you out of this grave, but if you want to go see the King of Hell, I won't bother you. It was Gu Xiang. For some unknown reasons, after being chased by a big dog, bitten by a monster, terrified by the hanged ghost's appearance, Zhou Zisha felt incredibly grateful for her voice. Gu Xiang continued to whisper, did you not hear me, or are you dead already? Master, I'm gonna leave for real if you don't speak up. Only then did Wen Kexing speak up leisurely. Ah Xiang, do you know what happens to girls who talk too much and do nothing? This seems to be a special kung fu of delivering sounds. Zhou Zisha had seen it from the other man several times. No matter where he was or how quiet he talked, he could make his target hear what he said very clearly. Gu Xiang made a whining sound, urging someone, hurry up, didn't you hear Master telling me to do more and talk less? Let's get him out of there. The sound of grave digging started afterward. Zhou Zisha suddenly realized, rather than not doing much, Gu Xiang just didn't do anything at all. It took nearly 4 hours to dig them out, like digging out 2 big turnips. Beside Gu Xiang was a crowd of men who looked like regular workers. She shouted, look! They're crawling out! Zhou Zisha didn't want to get out anymore at her words. Wen Kexing remained calm, making his way out with his face full of dirt and grime. He glanced at Gu Xiang, ordering her, you can shut up now. Gu Xiang stuck out her tongue, making an ugly face at Zhou Zisha's direction. A worker walked towards them and formally greeted Wen Kexing, Master, we're late. Gu Xiang cut in, we actually saw the marks you left behind long ago, but the Zhaos made quite a ruckus since there were 2 mysterious deaths going on, and all those cowards who came here after that stalled our progress. How did you 2 end up like this, anyway? Wen Kexing replied, we saw a laughing owl. Zhou Zisha glanced at every other direction at once, like being dragged into this was the last thing he wanted. Hey! Gu Xiang asked confusedly. Wen Kexing explained, a laughing owl signifies incoming misfortune, including death. That's why we had to hide underground, that way the ghosts will think that we're already dead and they will leave us be. Oh! Gu Xiang exclaimed in enlightenment. Wen Kexing patted her head, continuing shamelessly, bear it in mind, it may save your life one day. Then he looked over to the worker-dressed man. Old Meng, these clothes don't suit you at all. Dress like a butcher next time. Old Meng replied dutifully, yes, Master. Wen Kexing waved his hand, go, we don't need everyone gathering here and making people think that we're a gang of criminals. Old Meng whistled, and the rest disappeared into thin air in a very organized fashion, their traces completely vanishing. Zhou Zishu also said goodbye, but Wen Kexing told him, Brother Zhou, how about I follow you? Zhou Zishu used silence to proclaim his objection, only for Wen Kexing to continue, I'm a good man, so I can teach you the art of merit gathering on the way. Zhou Zishu remained silent. Gu Xiang, currently watching this staring contest, felt like the atmosphere had gone very strange. Eventually, Wen Kexing delivered the killing blow, and I'm gonna follow you whether you want me to or not. There was a stiff smile on Zhou Zishu's face as he replied, then be my guest, brother Wen. Looking at Zhou Zishu, Gu Xiang finally understood what the saying a mule is only obedient when it received a beating was all about. As for when she looked at Wen Kexing, she finally knew how a person could be so unabashed they would put the rest of the world to shame. She followed the two men, feeling extremely proud of herself for learning so much in just one night. Notes. Asterisk: the idiom is used for people who are stupidly stubborn and only harsh treatment will make them conform to something. End chapter. FarAway Wanderers. Chapter 15. Tavern. Master, how are you so sure that once a person wears a disguise, it has to be uglier than how they normally are? Gu Xiang asked. Wen Kexing drawled, no matter how ugly or beautiful people look, the features they were born with have a harmonious quality to them. Once tweakings are made, it's impossible to not slip and make a mistake, and if you make yourself to be more beautiful, there will be more eyes on you, thus exposing those mistakes even more easily, understand? The three of them were walking on the main road that was full of people in the middle of noon. Zhou Zishu maintained his energy well by staying mute during the other two's conversation and ignoring Wen Kexing's occasional secret looks thrown his way, but at those words, he couldn't help his surprise. This man sure knows a lot, he glanced at Wen Kexing and thought. Being the center of attention gave a boost to Wen Kexing's ego as he continued to ramble on. The art of disguise is vast with varying methods. Some paint over their face. This method requires fastidiousness as the smallest inconsistency will out them. Some craft a human skin-like mask, this one is way more effective and harder to detect if the disguiser is good at his job. He spared a quick look at Zhou Zishu at that. Gu Xiang immediately applied what she had been taught by feeling Zhou Zishu's face with her fingers. Her hands were soft, and around her sleeves was a refreshing fragrance that could only belong to a young maiden. Zhou Zishu made no attempt to dodge, instead he only laughed and let her do what she wanted. No one knew who was taking advantage of who at this point. He asked softly and patiently after a while, have you found anything? Gu Xiang's expression was full of doubt. She looked back to Wen Kexing skeptically, Master, I still feel like it's real. Wen Kexing replied, of course he won't wear a human skin mask, that thing leaves no room for the skin under to breathe. He would have to remove it after a certain amount of time, which is why I'm sticking to him, to see if he will do it. There was idolization on Gu Xiang's face. So you wasted this much time fooling around just because you want an answer to that? Wen Kexing pointed at Zhou Zishu, if he is a beauty, I'm definitely not wasting anything. After mulling things over, Zhou Zishu decided he could stay silent no longer. Since when was I fooling around with you? Wen Kexing answered unhurriedly, not now, but you definitely will in the future. Then he also reached out to touch Zhou Zishu's face. That time when I touched the skin on your shoulder, the feeling was different. Zhou Zishu batted his hand away as he stepped back. Wen Kexing raised his brows in discontent, pointing at Gu Xiang, how can she touch you but I can't? Zhou Zishu casually fixed his torn sleeves. If you can look like her, I'm willing to strip off everything so you can touch however much you like. Gu Xiang once thought Zhou Zishu was a poor beggar who was too unfortunate to have run into her master and even sympathized with him, but after that reply she realized they were just birds of a same damn feather, no wonder they flocked together. She could only hope now that they had each other to mess around and fight their energy away with, they would cause less disaster for the world. Wen Kexing turned to judge Gu Xiang with an unreadable face. Then his voice dropped, Ah Xiang, you can get lost now. There was a "Hui" from Gu Xiang as she blinked innocently. You want me to be off to where? Wen Kexing crossed his arms, really wishing to see her no more. This world is endless, except for Dongting, you can scram to wherever. Gu Xiang, after a good while of standing there foolishly, blurted out, are you jealous with me, master? Wen Kexing glanced at her. Goose Yang immediately understood and slapped herself. Damn you, you stupid mouth, you stupid running mouth, how about? Yang. Goose Yang walked away immediately with an ish, continuing to ramble along the way. Alright, I'll scram. Don't worry master, I'll leave to the farthest place I can. A three-legged frog may be hard to find but not a two-legged man. Never in my life would I dare to steal your men, master, please, you two just be my guest, carry on with what you're doing. Note, three-legged frog, a popular symbol for prosperity and wealth. She quickly disappeared from view, still prattling on. Zhou Zisha watched this squabble between master and maid with interest, thinking back to the except for Dongting part, which seemed to carry a deeper meaning. Once Goose Yang left, Wen Kexing's entire demeanor changed. He coughed pretentiously, extending his hand. Can this one have the honor of having a meal with you, brother Zhou? Even if I refuse, this person will tail me around anyway, Zhou Zisha thought, and if I agree he will pay for my food. He accepted the request quite cheerfully. Wen Kexing led the way with the brightest face. Zhou Zisha did an internal introspection, back when he was a half-ghost flitting about the palace, wearing robes and doing murderous business in a mysterious place full of apricot blossoms, he might be brutal, but at least there was a grace to him as a cover. Since when had he become unabashedly shameless? He looked at Wen Kexing's back and thought, a man is known by the company he keeps indeed. They were starving when they reached the tavern, so all the dishes were consumed with silent efficiency, as if they were afraid they would miss a bite. Their chopsticks bumped occasionally and small fights ensued over chicken and pork. One food admirer and one free meal enthusiast turned the table into a full-blown battle with heavy murderous atmosphere. After winning one plate to himself, Wen Kexing smiled at Zhou Zisha while waiting for the next dish. I've met my match, no wonder why this meal has become so much more delicious. Zhou Zisha looked at him scornfully. What are you, a chicken? Why all this fighting? At that moment, there was a commotion on the lower floor. A waiter taunted loudly, Hey, young master, you sure dress and behave well, why do you want to dine and dash? And the prepayment letter nonsense too, you must have heard too many stories. Which court scholar are you then? Are you a principal graduate, and if so, which examination did you ace in? And the calligraphy? Note, principal graduate, Zhuanggai Yuan, is the title for the person who scored first place during the examination to become court officials. The crowd around them laughed. Wen Kexing stuck his head out to look at the scene under them, rubbing his chin while whispering, A beauty. Zhou Zisha followed his gaze. Downstairs was a flustered young man wearing dark blue clothes, a xiao by his hip. His clothes didn't stand out at first glance, but when one took a closer look, the materials were incredibly exquisite. The jade xiao was also finely crafted, even if he wasn't an expert, he knew it must have cost a fortune. Zhou Zisha felt a sense of familiarity in the way he dressed and laughed quietly. Note, xiao, an end-blown flute. Wen Kexing asked, what are you laughing at? He tries to dress inconspicuously but ends up doing a terrible job of it. He reminds me of someone I knew. While they were talking, the ignorant young man surrounded by the crowd looked up, his eyes glossing over them. Zhou Zisha shook his head, he surely must be of the most distinguished nobility. Someone well versed in dissipated behaviors would never have that doe-eyed look to him. Brother Wen, your chance for merit gathering has come. Wen Kexing, initially watching his companion's expression, was startled at that, hand rummaging in his chest pocket. Yeah, you have a point, it's a must to aid a beauty in need. He stopped dead in his track, face strange, Brother Wen. Hey! I was thinking, how about you do it instead? Wen Kexing smiled awkwardly, I myself have done a lot in my lifetime, there's no need to steal your moment. Zhou Zisha beamed at him. After a few seconds, Wen Kexing sighed, shoulders sagging. Back when we were on the street, I helped a dashing man when he tripped and fell, he even smiled at me too. Ha, how could I ever know that a person with such charm turned out to be a thief? Zhou Zishu raised his brows, deciding that he should be even more shameless, he would not be beaten by this person. His mind made up, he conveniently tugged at Wen Kexing's sleeves to wipe his hand on them, then took out a silver ingot from his chest and threw it downstairs without any strength. It hit the increasingly offensive waiter on the head. The man was going to yell at whoever did that, but his anger vanished once he picked up the object and realized it was shiny silver. He heard Zhou Zishu's lazy drawl, "Put him on my tab." Naturally, the waiter shut up, his head lowered with words of affirmation. The young man in blue clothes immediately looked at Zhou Zishu gratefully and went upstairs to thank the other in person. Zhou Zishu pointed at the table that was now empty of food and said to Wen Kexing, "Saving him is on me, this meal is on you. Write that down, you owe me 3 silver liangs now." Wen Kexing spoke in a small voice, "Can I use my body to pay back the debt?" Zhou Zishu smiled, unruffled. "Sorry, my taste is not that refined yet." The young man had reached where they were sitting. Both hid away their sneaky smiles and displayed the most heroic demeanor possible. The young man bowed deeply, "My name is Cao Waning, please receive this gesture as my token of deepest gratitude for your help." Wen Kexing and Zhou Zishu both spoke at the same time, "It's nothing, young Master Cao, there's no need to be so formal." They glanced at each other meaningfully afterwards, basking in the peculiarity of the situation. Zhou Zishu coughed and looked away first. "Please sit, young Master Cao. My name is Zhou Su, and this one is Wen Kexing." The other smiled and nodded. He sat quietly and a bit distantly from them, his behaviors the perfect image of a gentleman. After thanking them, Cao Waning sat down without a doubt. He was a closed-door disciple from Qingfeng sword sect and this was his first time experiencing life in Jianghu. He got separated from his uncle master and unknowingly ran into a thief, which was why he was in this embarrassing situation. He was well and truly clueless about what to do until Zhou Zishu's rescue, consequently, he deemed this person to be such a righteous individual, even his sickly face didn't seem that grotesque at all to him. Note: closed-door disciple, the most highly regarded disciple under a master. Taking advantage of situations was Zhou Zishu's strongest point, his skills worked on everyone except for Wen Kexing. Only a few sentences into the conversation and Cao Waning already felt like they were the closest of comrades as he started telling the other everything possible. "My uncle master and I are attending the gathering in Dongting, but a few days ago something awful happened back at the Zhao's holdings. My uncle and Sir Zhao knew each other way back, so he told me to go to Dongting first to apologize to Sir Gao Chong for being late." Dongting's gathering. Zhou Zishu was surprised. "Yes." Cao Waning explained, "Has Brother Zhou heard about the Zhang family tragedy?" "Not only that, I heard a few days ago the Patriarch of Taishan died mysteriously in his own room along with all of his disciples in one single night, in a fashion not unlike the Zhangs. The lucky Zhang young master who survived is now with the Zhaos and under Sir Zhao's protection." He confirmed that the ghosts of King Zurich were behind this. "This gathering at Dongting is summoned by Sir Gao using his realm's command, aiming to gather all the heroes in the world to extinguish the Ghost Valley." On instinct, Zhou Zishu glanced at Wen Kexing only to find the man deeply invested in the conversation. He even asked, "Is this real?" "Absolutely." Cao Waning replied. "Uncle and I are under my master's order to attend." Sure enough, this youngling was someone experiencing real life for the first time, he answered questions he wasn't even asked. Wen Kexing said, "Isn't gathering merits your goal, Brother Zhou? How about accompanying this young friend? Battling evils is surely one of the biggest virtues out there." Zhou Zishu took a sip of wine with his eyes downcast, unsure about Wen Kexing's motives. Cao Waning clapped his hands, "Indeed it is. That was very well said of you, Brother Wen. I think you two are very righteous and honorable and that we can be great friends, so why don't you come with me to Dongting?" "Ha, this foolish kid! When Kexing smiled, that'd be our honor. End chapter.